Okay, and we are back. This is Mind Body Radio, here with another guest over the phone from London. Let's give a nice warm welcome to Paul Levrant. Paul, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for having me, Chris.
It's very nice to hear from you on the program this evening, and we're eager to learn a little about therapy, more specifically hypnotherapy, which is what you specialize in. Please, Paul, tell us a little more about your work and what it is that you do exactly.
Right. Over the years, I've come to specialize more in anxiety, but hypnotherapy, as I'm sure you know, and I'm sure many of your listeners know, is a very convenient way of addressing the subconscious mind. The subconscious being where we assume that most of our emotions and therefore most of our difficulties reside. So it's a way of having a quick word with the subconscious in a sort of compassionate and hopefully easily received way. Hope that makes some kind of sense.
Oh, yeah, it sure does. Now, before we get into the technical stuff, tell us about your background. What was the catalyst that set you on the path to becoming a therapist? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's again one of those stories of a great coincidence. I was originally in business in various ways throughout my life. I was actually trained as a jewelry designer. Couldn't get more different, could you? And through various business guises, for many years, then about 15 years ago, I actually entered therapy myself. The business I was in was very stressful, the usual kind of story. And I met some very inspiring and completely wonderful characters that put me on the road to becoming a therapist myself. And I think, it's easy to assume these things, but I think that having some experience of real-world difficulties has made it somehow a bit more authentic when I sit in front of people and people sit in front of me with problems similar to those that I've been through. And hopefully, because of those experiences and because of having successfully survived and navigated my way out of them, it might be just that little bit easier for people to speak to me about the problems that they're having. Often, I remember meeting so many other therapists on my route to various trainings, organizations and seminars and courses. And I always thought that some of them were rather dull and perhaps a little naive about real-world situations. And I sort of became, I had this kind of theory that if someone was going on a very, very difficult journey, if you were going to go to the South Pole or climb Everest, would you rather go with someone who had been there and successfully returned, or someone who'd read about it in a book? And that's kind of what I bring to my therapy, and I hope that it gels with my clients and hopefully can help them. Again, I hope that makes some kind of sense.
It does. Now, talk to me more about these clients you're seeing. I think you mentioned one of the more common issues you're dealing with is anxiety, I believe you said? Yes.
Yeah, anxiety, I think, is it seems to be becoming ever increasing, doesn't it? I mean, we feel so much anxiety. There seems to be so many more issues that we're becoming anxious about, whether it's the news, whether it's fake news, over here, whether it's Brexit, or over there with some of the presidential situations we're dealing with. I don't know, but there seems to be anxiety everywhere. And people are finding it sort of less and less easy to deal with and looking for solutions which are practical, things they can actually do that will bring relief to these kind of difficulties that they're experiencing. And I think, as a hypnotherapist, we're often trained for so many different interventions, from giving up smoking to, habits and nail biting, hair pulling, all of it. But all of it really is driven at some level by anxiety. And so I think it's dealing with the anxiety, not the symptom that you see, but dealing with the underlying anxiety that gives us maybe a longer lasting solution. That's kind of my approach. So whether it's a pure anxiety or whether it's a habit driven by anxiety, let's deal with the underlying issue, the anxiety.
Yeah. So what is it that you are seeing? You're seeing more of this habit driven and this kind of environmentally caused anxiety, or do you think it's something that people are genetically predisposed to experiencing?
I think, that's an interesting question. I think there is a genetic predisposition. It's probably 50% nature, 50% nurture. I think we learn emotion at the feet of our parents alongside language. We learn how to speak, we learn how to be. So if you're brought up in an emotional, fraught environment, then you're probably more likely, if you have this predisposition, to be emotionally fraught. And that might come out at later stages when stress becomes unmanageable. So I think dealing with that kind of issue, dealing with anxiety is so important to help to sort of just generally reduce the amount of background static that we're feeling all the time. I think I've lost the thrust of the question you actually asked me, Chris, but please feel free to back me back on track.
Yeah, well, I have another question for you here, and that is about the hypnotherapy itself. And we understand it works with the subconscious mind, and my question is why not just make a deliberate change and use your willpower? Why do we have to meddle with the part of the mind that we're not really aware of?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's so fascinating, and this is something that comes up so many times when you're dealing with willpower. People who have habits, for example, I mean, smoking is an easy one, I suppose, to illustrate. Why don't you just stop smoking? Well, I tried and I can't. Because willpower is really designed for a short-term emergency. We can do something under willpower. We can bring an enormous amount of energy to bear at a very sort of small point of focus. It's a hugely energetic focus of attention, but it's only for a short-term emergency. You can't live under willpower. It's long-term. It's going to lead to all kinds of difficulties and all kinds of inner conflict. So if we can somehow reduce that conflict not by trying to not do something, but by trying to do something else. If you're trying to resist something, all it does is make it stronger. What we have to do is accept that this is what's going on and what would be a better alternative. So if we can present to the subconscious something that's a better alternative, something that has a benefit, something that feels better, then the mind is more likely to adopt that approach. It's like taking a toy out of a child's hand. If the child's enjoying playing with the toy, even if it doesn't know it's dangerous, you try and take it out of its hand, you're going to get a tantrum. But if you put something better in its hand, then, you may have a result there. Then it may be more interested and continue to playing with that and forget the old one. So that, I think, is the basis of behavioral change. Again, I hope that makes some kind of sense. You can't just take something away just because it's a good idea. Subconscious isn't interested in that. It just wants to feel good. So give it something that will make it feel better. Don't take something away that it thinks is enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And hypnotherapy is a way of presenting that kind of approach. It's never foolproof. I mean, there's never 100% success of anything, but it's a better way of trying to develop a change in somebody, providing, of course, there's always the proviso that they actually want that change to take place. You can never make somebody do anything they just don't want to do. Forget it. You can't control somebody's mind. You know, if you could control somebody's mind, don't you think the government would have got it years ago? We'd all be controlled and pay our taxes on time. You can't. You have to want to do something, and hypnotherapy is a very good way of enabling that change to take place.
Now, I know there's a lot to talk about here, but not a lot of time left. Final question for you, Paul, and that is
sure.
Your goals as a therapist, as an entrepreneur. What's next on the agenda for you?
Well, I think next on the agenda is, and I've been doing this for some time, I've been compiling some very interesting case studies, which will go into the book. Funny enough, I was talking to a colleague the other night, and I told him, I said, "Look, I'm writing a book," and he said, "No, that's strange. Neither am I." So, obviously, everyone's got a book in them, but hopefully, the book will be something that people will pick up and be amused and maybe informed by. But that's next on my agenda.
All right, wonderful. And how about some contact information? Any way for our listeners to work with you?
Yes, indeed. The website is hypnowellness.co.uk. So that's one word, hypnowellness.co.uk. And I'm pleased to hear from anybody. And there's always the option of an initial consultation, which I always have to do with my clients before any commitment is made. I think that's an important step. Mm-hmm. I'll be welcome anybody's inquiry, and we can always have a chat and see if I'm the right person today.
All right, wonderful. Paul, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Chris. All the best.